Welcome, everyone, to the third episode of the Casandra Properties podcast. I am joined today by a dear friend, mentor, and everything in between, John Vernazza, who is also our office manager. How are we doing, John?
Great, James. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. It's always a happy Monday at Casandra Properties.
That's right.
So we wanted to talk today. Of course, I want to do an introduction of John and just kind of roll up all of the things that we've been doing together. John will talk about his affiliations out over at the state. Super involved, plugged in, really a tremendous asset for the company and the community. And he's going to talk a little bit about his history and how he came to Casandra Properties. And then for the value of the day, if you will, we're trying to deliver value, folks, beyond the introductions and of course, offering our insights into the market. We're going to talk about Staten Island, the borough. We're going to talk about some stats on Staten Island and why Staten Island is really positioned as a great place to make an investment. And we'll get into those details a little bit later in the podcast. But let's start, John. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself, please.
Sure. I'm a native Staten Islander, proud to say that. And I've been here since 19 blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to go into that. But I've seen the island grow dramatically throughout the years. I tell many people I remember when Richmond Avenue between Highland Boulevard and Amboy Road was a dirt road.
Yep.
And I could remember every Saturday with my mother taking us kids and throwing us into the back of the car and telling us to be good, otherwise we'd pay for it later on while she went shopping up and down Richmond Avenue to all the farms for her fresh vegetables for the week.
Right, where the building is now used to be farmland.
Absolutely, Crampana's farm.
Yeah, people don't realize that not too long ago, Staten Island had a very different complexion.
Absolutely. But those were back in the the pre-bridge, pre-Verrazano Bridge and forgotten borough status, and we've come a very, very long way. It's the incredible growth that I've seen to nearly 500,000 people living on the island, and we are no longer a forgotten borough.
Amen.
Yep, thank God for that is right. And so I had I'm really a fairly boring individual. I mean, my education, was. Catholic grammar school at, Our Lady Queen of Peace in New Dorp, where I was born and raised, and New Dorp High School, and then off to St. John's University up on first in downtown Brooklyn, and then it moved to Grimes Hill.
Yep.
And I have a bachelor's degree in business administration with a concentration in finance. And I've worked on Wall Street for a number of years. I was a director of a trader and broker for international finance and foreign exchange markets.
What time period was that?
That was, now I'm going to start giving away. That was from...
I'm reverse engineering your age, folks. That's what I'm trying to do here.
Get those pens out now. But that was from 1974 till 1998.
Wow, so you saw...
Yeah.
Quite a rip.
Yeah, quite a rip is right.
I bet you have some stories from back in those days.
I always said I'm going to write a book, and some of it's going to be very informative, and some of it's going to be quite funny.
So you saw, 1998, back in 1998, a lot of the digital transformation started to take hold, right?
So we had about 12 international money market firms around the world. My company that I worked for had 17 offices around the world.
Wow.
And I was a director of the money markets, and I had 5 vice presidents answering to me. And, it was a good career. It was a wonderful company. But at the ripe old age of 48, so there's another quick number to put into your equation. I was it basically came down to the digital market. It also came down to the fact that euro was born, and so the Deutsche Mark was gone, the French franc was gone, the Belgian financials were gone, plus many others. lira, so on and so forth. So it imploded the market considerably, and 12 companies, about 12, went down to 5 companies in no time. So I found myself at the age of 48, wondering where I was going to find my next career.
So you've gone through now 2 complete digital overhauls, right? Because our last podcast, Peter, who I forgot to mention, of course, Peter's in the corner on the 1s and 2s as always. Peter gave a great roll-up of how to navigate the digital world, kind of the basics, but a really healthy one. So this is the second time that you've seen an industry completely revolutionized by technology.
Sure. We went from, in 1998, we went from the monthly books that we used to go to Staten Island Board of Realtors at the time on Newdorf Plaza and pick up our books quickly.
Oh, yeah. We talked about that, the book.
And then, I mean, you went through it quickly and said, oh, this looks great, and half of those things are already sold because of the print time and whatnot. It had like a 2-week lag.
Yeah.
But those books were the Bible.
Crazy, huh?
Yeah, crazy.
All right, so I interrupted you. I just wanted to get a little more history on that. I apologize. You were up to the stock market history, so let's pick it back up
international money markets, not stock market, international bond markets, and which is what I was also involved in, besides the foreign exchange markets. But so then it was time for me to move on, because the company that I worked for as a director was taken over by a bigger company. So it was time for me to move on. So I sat at home for about a year, deciding where I wanted to go, or at that ripe old age of 48, what I'd be able to do. Of course, the first instinct was for me to try to get back on Wall Street, but that wasn't happening. So I thought about things, and I said, you're a native Staten Islander. You know a lot about Staten Island. You've been in touch with a lot of people on Staten Island. You know what? Why don't you give real estate a try? And so I did, and one of my neighbors was a broker here on Staten Island, so I went to school, did what I had to do. At the time, it was a 45-hour course, and then an exam. Now it's 75 hours. And I truly, truly enjoyed it, because I truly enjoy working with people. And it was so rewarding, yet different than Wall Street. I mean, I served on board of directors while on Wall Street. And, there you were, serving on a company board, and everybody had the same interests and whatnot. Whereas when I joined the real estate on Staten Island in 1998, a few years later, I was elected to the board of directors of Staten Island Board of Realtors, where I got involved with the inner workings of the industry. And it was, I found it then, and I still find it to this day, absolutely amazing how that board of directors is made up of pure competitors, all different broker owners and broker managers, and they all sit around that desk or that table once a month, and they leave their personal interests outside the door, and they come in for the better good, not only for their members, of course, that's why they're there, but for the community.
Yeah.
And that's what really drew me to that. And then from there, and of course, I became eventually, in 2009, president of the Staten Island Board of Realtors, which I found to be exceptionally rewarding. And it opened up so many more doors now at the state level, because I was representing Staten Island, along with other people of the board, of course, and representing Staten Island on a state level. And I got more and more involved in NYSAR, New York State Association of Realtors. Because we have CYBOR as our local organization, Staten Island Board of Realtors. New York State Association of Realtors, NYSAR, is our state organization. That's about 60,000 people.
60,000?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep, around the state. And then, of course, there's the National Association of Realtors. And any realtor is a member of all three. And the National Association of Realtors is about 1.4 million realtors. So So I got involved both in the state, quite a bit in the state, and some work on the national level. And right now I'm involved in, a member of the Involvement Committee, the MIC, and there's two individuals from every state representing their state in this national committee, and I'm one of those two people. So I find that to be very rewarding. And I've also been FPC, which is Federal Political Coordinator on a national level, and working with our members of Congress. And I've worked with several congressmen from Staten Island, the 11th Congressional District, and in keeping them informed as to what realtor needs are and so on. And what's amazing about it, and where I find it so self-gratifying, especially on the national level, is that 95% of where we stand on certain matters and opinions is all community-based. It's very,
Right.
very rare that it's just realtor-based, whether it be mortgages or tax write-offs.
So that's not like a byline. Realtors are part of the fabric of every community.
Absolutely.
People don't quite get that,
Right.
but without a doubt, we are indelibly tied to all the civic associations, and just we're part of the fabric of
That's right.
Staten Island, without
That's
a
right.
doubt.
Absolutely.
So you're coming out of an industry in your 40-somethings, right? A career that you had been in for 20 years, and you're now in a completely different field. So you didn't have any real estate experience prior to that?
No.
No
I mean,
sales experience in real estate whatsoever?
None. The only thing that I had experience with was on my personal level and buying and selling real estate.
So
But
here
other
you
than
are,
that, no.
coming out of an industry. You take a year to kind of gather the thoughts and chart the course.
Correct.
You enter into a completely different, unrelated market altogether. That had to be a scary time.
It was. It was because I had one, my two children, I had one in high school starting to look at colleges. And I had my older child, my older daughter, Jennifer, and she was in college. So the pressure was on.
Wow.
But my wife was very, very supportive and very patient. That's one of the reasons why I think I did so well in this industry. And now involved, now especially on the state level. Right now, I'm the 2021 nominee to be Secretary Treasurer of the state.
Representing 60,000 members.
Correct.
Tremendous.
And I will, if in October we have our state meetings, our fall meetings, and there my name will be put into to the board of directors to be confirmed. And if so confirmed, I'll be the next year's Secretary Treasurer, and then I'll be automatically running for President-elect for 2022. And if that's confirmed, then I will be President of the New York State Association of Realtors in 2023.
I mean, what a story. What a story. In that short time from when you're in the mid to late 40s to now you're only 50.
Best 15 years of my life.
All kidding aside, to reinvent yourself that way and in a manner that just displays such excellence, to be in an association, this is an association with 3,000, 4,000, 60,000 members, to be at that level and to attain those titles and to be potentially the president of this association of 60,000 members in an industry you had never worked in, truly is remarkable.
Yeah, I'm pretty proud of it.
You should be, John. I've been hammering away at this industry for 25 years, and I have not even come remotely close to the accomplishments that you have put under your belt, and that's kind of how we got together.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So, okay, you get into this business, and what happens? You start as a sales?
Yeah, start as a salesperson, and 2 years into it, first you had to do 2 years before you could elevate yourself to associate broker. So I went back to school, and I did another 45-hour course, like anybody does, and passed the associate broker's exam. So now I'm an associate broker, which is what my title is. Now, according to state, either you're a broker owner, associate broker, or salesperson. Those are the three titles that the Department of State, who governs us up in Albany, those are the three titles that you're entitled to as a realtor.
So what are the 2-year period between getting licensed as a salesperson, you go to work at a company, are you moving product? I mean, are you selling things?
Yes.
You are?
Yeah.
So
yeah. Takes a while to get started.
It does.
Yeah. But again, I think I had a little bit of help because I knew a lot of people on Staten Island. I was a native islander. And, I was quite involved with my, when my children were in grammar school. I was very much involved in high school. My wife was PTA president. She's a teacher in a local parochial high school at the time.
And my son's tutor.
That's right, and your son's tutor. So all those little things helped. And I really do believe, and I teach this here at Casandra Properties, as you know. I have like a 4 or 5 week program anytime we hire somebody new into the market before I really let them get started. I like to teach them, what the state doesn't require them to know, but what I think they need to know as a realtor, because they're helping somebody make the most important financial decision, single financial decision of their lives.
Yep.
And it's quite a responsibility.
It is. We talk about that a lot.
Yeah.
That this is not an industry, although we see it so often. Just everyone knows a realtor, right? Like we said earlier, and I'm amazed at how many people don't put the realtors through the paces and really see if they are an expert in that respective portion of the transaction,
Sure.
right? So, and again, in this world where digital is changing the game so darn fast, that's pretty wild how people don't put more of an emphasis on that. But I think with the continued changing of how we do business in this market, education and reviews and history is becoming more prevalent. We are seeing now more than ever, folks are starting to do their homework because it's so easy. Right?
It is.
It's so easy to look up your local agent and see the kind of work that they're doing. So I just want to go back quickly to you're getting started. You're in this 2-year period. We tell people, as John had said, 6 months is the baseline.
Correct.
Right? At a minimum 6 months before you're going to get your first deal under your belt. And that hasn't changed. It took me just short of 6 months when I first started. And in spite of all the technology and all the wonderful changes that we've seen over the last 20 years, you still need that 6 months. There's so much to learn.
There is.
Right? The state does a great job giving you the background and the legal and all of the what you can and what you can't, what you should, what you shouldn't, fiduciary responsibilities, ethics. They do a really good job with those courses. But there's no textbook that can teach you how to handle real estate transactions.
Precisely.
There's lots of books, and I've picked up some good points over the years from different books, but because it's such a wide berth, I mean, we handle everything here from the 400 square foot drop-off dry cleaner to I did the Nordstrom lease at Empire Outlets, right, and everything in between, from the $80,000 co-op to the $4 million home in Toad Hill. Each transaction carries with it its own set of disciplines, its own set of rules that you can follow to try and drive value with maximum exposure in the shortest period of time. So when you get into this business, folks think, the fees in real estate, what do you guys really do? And until you're on the other side of the table, you really can't understand how hard the brokers are working for you and
Well,
the agents are working
You
for
know,
you.
even during the course of a transaction, buyer and seller, and during the course of that transaction, and not only are they working with the realtor, and they're working with the real estate attorney, and then they're also working with the building inspection, and then they're working with a mortgage broker. But whenever a buyer or a seller has a question about any part of that transaction, their first reaction is to call the realtor. So that's where, and one of my teachings, I teach, and this is pretty commonly known in the real estate industry, is as a realtor, you have to be the source where you're involved, but you have to be the resource
Right,
where you're not.
right.
But you've got to, you're the guy, you're the traffic cop, you're the guy sort of saying, okay, well, this is, you have to talk to your engineer about this, you got to talk, oh, well, we're in the contract portion of the transaction, so now you really have to tell your attorney about that and keep your attorney involved in that.
Yep.
But they normally come to us and we're there playing traffic cop, which is fine, you know. So I always found that rather interesting. That
Yeah.
we're always the first ones to call, and again, that's great. You know, it's great. But and it just shows the emphasis of how they trust us,
Without a doubt.
and as they should. You know,
And like you said, it's a big responsibility.
it is. It's a tremendous responsibility.
It weighs heavily. Folks,
Yeah.
believe me when I tell you that the stress of handling, I have far less stress when I'm involved in my own transactions.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm the buyer and or seller,
Right.
It's not the same. When I'm handling other folks' transactions, it's heavy. It's
It is.
heavy because people are really dependent upon you to do the right thing and to accomplish whatever the respective task is for that particular assignment. But it's heavy. So you're back in here 2 years. You go get your broker's license, and you're the associate broker, still acting as a salesperson. And now what?
Then I moved on to another big company on Staten Island where I was manager for 5 or 6 years.
And that's within how long of a time period from the day you got your license to the day you make that move,
I
roughly?
would say roughly that's 12 years.
Wow. So in 12 years now, you go to a large company, and
Right.
how many people are you overseeing here?
300.
300 people.
in
And-
total. Yeah. And that was great. That was great for a while. And for various reasons that I don't really need to go into, because they're a very successful company, and God bless them, you know. But for me, it was time for me to move on, and I decided that I would go open my own company, which I did, as you well know,
Yep.
on Richmond Avenue, and then I had that going for a few years, and then, as you recall, I had a client come to me from Colorado, and this was a very, very big project, and I knew that I had limitations for that big project, and I knew that I needed to bring someone on board with me. So that's when I contacted you, James, because I know about your professionalism and your contacts, and we've had many a conversation, so I knew we got along quite well.
Yeah.
And sure enough, we listed that big project together and are working on it to date. And I've got a lot of confidence that that's going to come to attrition. But then, you had come to me and said, "Hey, how about doing something over here?" And I was ready to consider that, and we came to an agreement and picked up my stuff and my agents, and we moved across the road.
Yeah. We
And-
merged you in here, and
Yeah.
and here we are today.
Yep.
So John represented everything I wasn't over the years. So, you know, I've always been a head down deal guy, right? And
Yep.
and we talked about this also a little bit in the past podcast. I've always been focused on trying to do absolutely everything I could to get from A to B, and sometimes oftentimes I didn't have my head up, and I wasn't paying as much attention to some of the peripheral stuff that needed to be tended to. And you became, to your credit, an unbelievable, wonderful source and friend for me. You didn't have to answer. I mean, I had to call you 50 times. Literally, like, hey, John, how do you handle this? And hey, John, what's the appropriate paperwork for that? And how do you handle your training? And, you even at one point had given me the whole playbook on how to train the agents. You wrote out this masterful plan. It's a 6-week program of how to take agents from day one to being confident and ready and productive enough to go out and represent our buyers and sellers in an absolutely professional manner. And it's a testament to the person that you are, because you didn't have to answer those calls. You didn't have to share that information. And when you had an assignment that was outside of your wheelhouse, as so many were outside of my wheelhouse and why I reached to you, you called me up and said, hey, why don't we do this together and JV it? And, we put that deal together. The deal is moving through. It's going to close in the next 12 to 18 months. It's going to be a wonderful project, and I never would have been afforded that opportunity if you didn't pick the phone up and give me that consideration.
Thank you.
And thank you. It's...
oh, come on. Thank you.
So I really appreciated that, and it always stuck with me every time I would double back to Becca on our ridiculous nightly calls. About, hey, I connected with Johnny today, and hey, I spoke to, and Becca was speaking to you quite a bit, and it's always been just a wonderful working relationship. So as we were, the stars aligned, really, because when I had made the commitment to grow the base beyond, where we were and really start to go after bigger market shares, instead of focusing on just the niche high-end homes and the niche commercial stuff, we needed infrastructure. And it came at a time when Peter had gotten involved, and so Petey was building out the whole back end, and Rebecca was building out the whole HR and compliance side, but I needed ops. Mm-hmm. I needed desperately to have a trusted source that I was comfortable, bringing into the operation. This is Mom's,
Right.
namesake on the company here. This is something that's really important to me and to the family, and you were... without question, very quickly, it was, well, if I'm going to do this, I can only do it with John, because I trusted you implicitly, and we were in you're my complete counterbalance, right? Well, it's true. It's true. I mean, there's, and that's what makes for good partners.
Yep.
Right? Is when you have everybody that's thinking the same way. Too many times you're missing the things that are happening around. You need someone looking forward, someone looking back, someone covering the flanks. And I think with you and Pete and Rebecca and, of course, Mom, I think that we've covered those bases fairly well. So you come on over, we merge the companies, and we start building out state-of-the-art website, ripping it down, rebuilding that. You were a part of that, and putting in all the infrastructure and all the training. So... for the agents out there that may be contemplating getting a license, it's not as simple. Well, it is as simple, but it's not the right way as you go take a test and, you get your license and now you can go out and sell real estate. Do you want to talk a little bit about this program? It's a 6-week program and it's intense. Let's talk about some of the things that you cover in this.
Yeah, well, I cover, one of the first things I cover is, how I tell them, this is real estate. I call it, of course, real estate between the lines.
Right.
So, how do you address, services, the issues on services? How do you address why a realtor is important to the transaction? Why do you, Mr. Buyer and seller, need a realtor and representation, whether it be seller representation or buyer representation, and which we teach in its entirety. Because seller representation, buyer representation are two different things.
Two totally different disciplines.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, it's no agent, let me put it to you this way. If an agent is, oh, you got a license, great, here you go, here's a telephone, go do it, and they're left alone.
Right.
That poor person is not going to make it. And unfortunately is going to get awfully frustrated, because the first thing I address, the first thing I tell them is, if you do a transaction within your first 6 months, you're having a hell of a ride.
Yeah.
Because it's just not that easy. It's not like this is the kitchen and this is the living room and this is the full bath. And, no, that's the easy part of the job.
Right.
But you got to be, you got to be a closer. You got to know how to address things. You got to, know the concerns of both your buyer and seller. And the only reason and the only way you do that is by using your 2 ears before you use your mouth.
That's right. Something I'm really trying very hard. Peter and John are both laughing at me. Really? I'm here, guys. If you don't see me. I'm working at that. Like I said, you're my perfect compliment.
Right. All the different issues involved that, I go over scenarios, I role play. And they are, and I tell them, look, I'll go out with you the first or second time, whatever you like. And 90% of the time it's no, you got us ready. And even when we've had people join us who had a short career someplace else. And if they were to join us and they didn't have this opportunity, and as soon as they came in, I put a halt on them going right back out. And I did an abbreviated version of our program, and they were over the moon, not knowing things.
And to your credit, that's hard to do, right? When they first hear you can't go out and earn off the hop,
right.
That's a tough conversation to have. But to your credit, after they acknowledge, if you're going to be here, this is how it's going to be, right? We're not going to send people out into the street that are not prepared. And they go through this course, even if it's the truncated course, they come out on the other side with because I get all the calls, right? I get all the wow, like we didn't realize how much we didn't know. And at other places, they're out running around, and it's frustrating, and it's hard.
Yeah.
And we try to be patient because it's not fair to the agent that hasn't been properly trained.
Right.
But we come across this stuff all the time, and we take it very seriously when we handle sellers' assets. And when you come across agents that just haven't had the opportunity to learn, it's tough and it's frustrating, because it creates in many instances problems in the deal that arise that have to be managed. Mm-hmm. And it's tough. I think that every brokerage should have this mandatory kind of course, which I wanted to talk about it because I was blown away by it. Even with my 25 years in the business, as I was looking through this, I was saying, I can't administer this. This is not my expertise. This is, and as you came in and you brought that and so many other unbelievable tools to the company, we found a nice sweet spot, where everybody kind of has their roles and here we are rolling along. So John has now been with us 2 years? Is it 2 years?
Yeah.
All right, so 2 years in, and you've got all of the systems in place, and you're adopting technology and integrating it into your process masterfully, right? Your first video walkthrough, I forgot what the numbers were. It was some crazy
astronomical
amount of hours, hundreds of hours watched on your listings.
Well, you know what? We were... quite frankly, you have to give credit where credit's due, and that's not to me by no means. I mean, we're the only, as far as I could tell, I'm very confident in saying this, that we are the only real estate company, local real estate company, that offers media department assistance. And a lot of money has been invested by Casandra, by yourself, and kudos to you for having the forefront vision of this coming. And of course, the pandemic didn't help matters any, but it put us, quite frankly, in a good position as far as servicing our clientele.
It sure did.
Yeah. And working, with Peter, who runs. Hey, Pete, how you doing, buddy? He's still back there in the corner. Peter running running that division with his vast experience. And this beautiful, this podcast room, is just puts us head over heels over our competition. And it's not that we don't want competition, we do, but we've really strategically put ourselves in a wonderful, wonderful position where we could help our clients and customers alike.
That's the rub, right? None of what we've done has been, we wanted to do it to one up what the next person was doing.
Right.
We really don't even look at that. It's been a constant re-analysis of where are we, where are the holes, what can we do to do it better. To not to do it better than ABC Realty down the block, to do it better for our clients.
Correct.
And that's been the genesis of everything that we've done, from the podcast studio to the blogs to the PR division to all of the unbelievable technology that Pete has brought in on the tech side. All of it has been, how can we service our buyers, our sellers, our tenants, and our landlords in a more professional manner, quicker, for the best price. And that's just served us well. It's that is my side. I've had those instincts. I've been able to see, but I've also learned to know intimately what I don't know. And prior to this changing, if you will, over the last couple of years, where everybody started to come to the table and I started bringing in these different components, I was frozen because I would try to move these initiatives forward, and we grew as a company, but not nearly the way we should have grown as a company. So, here we are today. I'm really proud of what we've become, and I'm really proud of where we're headed. So I wanted to, in the vein of delivering value and delivering value to our customers, I wanted to talk a bit about the Staten Island market.
Sure.
Post-COVID.
Sure.
Right? So I'll talk a little bit about the commercial side. What are you seeing on the residential side?
It's a hell of an interesting market. We've had during the course of us being through phase 1 and now phase 2, and what we could and could not do, I saw every single one of our contracted deals on the residential side close.
Tremendous.
Yeah, every one. So we were quite busy, and it was that much harder, especially during phase 1, when we still had to do real estate only from our home.
Right.
But we were able to get it done. And so at the time, in the middle of March, thereabouts, there were 1,649 active listings. That included all residential and all commercial. I didn't break it down, and land, but most of it is residential and commercial, and some rentals if people decided to share that in multiple listings. Now today, as of this morning, because every morning my first thing to do is, of course, grab my cup of coffee and take a sip, and then turn on my my computer and look up the Staten Island Board of Realtors, and I saw 2,102 listings. So it's grown. So you would say to yourself, okay, now the tide is moving and maybe tilting toward the buy side of the market, the buyer side of the market. But I have listed, personally, I had listed 4 residential properties. I listed 2 residential properties and worked with those people as buyers as well. And within a week, I had all 4 transactions done.
Tremendous.
So there's still the interest. I'm watching that 2,102 number carefully. But there is still, if you price it right, and I'll say this, ladies and gentlemen, again, a realtor is professionally trained. They know exactly what things should be, where they should be, and how they should be priced. And I don't care which realtor you use. That's the rule of thumb, and that's the law, according to the Department of State. And we have to prove to you when we come and sit down with you and either list your home or work with you as a buyer, as a buyer's agent, which is a whole nother conversation. We'll have at another time, what that is, but which is representation. We have to show you, be prepared to show you why we come up with the numbers we come up with.
Right.
And that's fine.
Right.
But
and you take your time on that.
Oh, yes.
You, the only one I've seen go to such lengths in illustrating that process is Mom. Mm-hmm. You sit down, and something I absolutely love that you do that others don't is you go through closing costs.
Yes.
so few people take the time. You bring to every listing appointment, you bring out your closing cost sheet, and you take them through from start to finish. Unfortunately, there are those that want to skirt the expense side of this.
Sure.
And then you have, as you get closer to the closing, I didn't know what, and now you've got people who have spent money on engineers and inspections and attorneys and title, and now you have a headache, right? So right up front, you walk the potential seller down the line of every expense that they're going to endure through the process. So again, another thing I applaud you from, and it's different than what most folks do. So I think that what we're seeing is so we're talking about an increase of almost 500 listings since March, but we're seeing the velocity of product and this velocity of the sale is there. Product is moving. So we talked about this a little bit when the pandemic first hit, and I think it's bearing out to be exactly what we had forecasted. Rates are low. They're going to stay low for the foreseeable future.
Absolutely.
So you didn't have disruptions in certain key elements. Interest rates didn't go up.
Nope.
There was no issue on the supply side, and there was no issue on the demand side, short of that moment in time where we just could not do business. There wasn't other economic factors that changed the game for us, where you typically it's a difficult process when you're heading into these recessions. You know, it's a 2 to 3 year slow burn as you drop down the slide. This was overnight. Things stopped. I think what we're seeing is a backload of listings that were folks who were thinking of selling, and there are certainly those who have been a bit rattled by what happened here and are choosing to relocate. So when you have those both coming together, I think that's why we're seeing the 500 additional listings in a pretty short period of time. But we're not seeing prices dropping.
No.
Right? So we have in 2019, for this month, the average list price was $683,000 in MLS. The average list price today for the same time period is $708,000. Okay, now I know folks are going to say, "Oh, but what are they selling for?" Right? So the average sale price in 2019 was $582. Today it's $619. So we are seeing as many folks that are looking to pick up and relocate, and even with that influx of potential sellers that were unable to transact during COVID, we're seeing a good amount of folks relocating to Staten Island.
Well, that's it. Remember, as it says in all the National Association of Realtor commercials that we've all seen, and they always make it a point to point out who that is. Confer with your realtor, because every market is local.
Yep.
And for us now, I think a lot of people are starting to see, the importance of the vast difference between, I should say, from other boroughs and Staten Island. And when they come to Staten Island, they see a lot more value for their dollar.
Yeah.
So even if they weren't thinking about it, now it's part of their thought process, and we're starting to see that. We've always had it, but there are certain people, like myself. I don't know if I'd move to another borough. I'm a Staten Islander, So I don't hold anybody in fault for it. But a lot of people, when they come here, have a completely different outlook on it, and that's why I think we're enjoying a robust market at this point on both sides.
Without question. So we're seeing now, and on the commercial side, this is applying as well. Retail aside, and retail on Staten Island, where we're not as bad off as people had forecasted. The retail market is going to take some time to move through its paces. There was a complete, again, the digital age has turned retail on its head. Some have adapted and are doing brilliantly. Others have resisted and are not. With that, here in Staten Island, what we've seen is this is the place to, and it's going to sound so self-serving, but it's not. This is a safe place to make an investment, right? Staten Island, when you compare from 9/11, the '08 crash, Superstorm Sandy. We have never seen these crazy, I call them V markets, right? Where we're crashing down. We also are not on the rebound coming up quite as quickly, but it's safe. We've been a reliable, safe place to put your money for decades now, and people are starting to see it, right? People are starting to look at Staten Island. It's not so much the narrative that we used to have where it was the forgotten borough. I think we're 479,000 strong on Staten Island, right? They called, the last borough president used to call us the borough of parks. We have 23 parks on Staten Island.
Right.
Amazing parks. Wonderful places for whatever the activity may be. A good portion of the borough has a park. I mean, I don't want to say in walking distance, but gosh, it's within a couple of quick minutes of any part of Staten Island, right? We're seeing on Staten Island now folks that are looking for a little bit of a change, right? They're looking for a little bit more space. I think that certainly the pandemic has caused people to reevaluate that.
Sure.
Folks that have been traditionally totally comfortable in apartment living, condo living, co-op living are reevaluating and thinking maybe, we want something different. So we're seeing a lot of folks that are coming in from the other boroughs. And because over the years in Staten Island, we've been resistant to many of the upzonings, we've gone the other way. So where so many boroughs upzoned a lot of their M property and a lot of their non-traditional residential land to accommodate wild growth, our growth's been steady. So we've held a lot of those assets back. And what that's resulting in today is businesses that are performing and businesses that are doing well are looking for less expensive alternatives. They still want to be in New York for a myriad of different reasons. So you have the ability where in parts of Brooklyn they were upzoning and changing these M properties, I should explain, manufacturing property, M land. They were changing them to residential, and you had people priced out. That contractor or whatever that particular industry was, they couldn't afford that M property anymore because it was being traded as residential property, which the numbers in Brooklyn are bonkers. And it resulted in a really strong influx of folks coming to the borough. So I just wanted to run down a couple of more quick stats here on Staten Island. We go around to the trade shows for International Council of Shopping Centers, and we travel around the country, and in certain years we travel around the world, and we sell Staten Island. We talk about all the wonderful things that Staten Island has to offer. So what we're seeing here is, and what I think we're going to continue to see, is as these residents relocate to Staten Island, I think there's a big infrastructure package on the horizon. I think that there's going to be a massive amount of money available for these projects, and I think you're going to see Staten Island as kind of the ground zero for a lot of folks in the contracting world to mobilize from. As it currently stands, I think there's $1 billion that the governor earmarked for the East Shore seawall program that will be deployed in the coming years. $1 billion. It's a lot of work. That's a lot of jobs. That's a lot of opportunity. The city, I believe, still has a few $100 million left over from the efforts when they went in and they had to buy the houses back from Sandy. So as you have these opportunities here and you have the potential for growth and you have a borough that's only 475,000 people, 68.6%, I think at last count, was the amount of people who own their home on Staten Island. Right?
It's a fascinating stat because I had hosted a luncheon in Washington D.C. and some of the participants in the luncheon were CEOs of very large banks, CEOs of restaurant chains, so on and so forth. And at the time it was 2000. This was back in 2010, 9 or 10, and they were talking about, they were concerned, and I'm so happy I went to this luncheon because they were concerned and questioned why did Staten Island have such a high level of foreclosure rates at the time. And at the time, I think I had pulled a stat that it was around 70%, so we're right up there still. around 70, and I told him, I said about approximately 70% of Staten Islanders are homeowners.
Right.
I said the next borough, the number 2 borough at the time, was Queens, and that was 36%.
Wow.
I said, so you could truly understand why you saw those numbers in foreclosures. And they said, that's absolutely correct. I said, furthermore, I said, it shows you the urban side of the city. I said, and it shows you that, in my opinion, of course I'm being biased because I'm a native Staten Islander. I said, but it goes to show you that with 68% of ownership, what people think about this island because they're investing their money in it.
That's the key. There's a very big difference when people are walking through a community. This was a big push, an initiative I undertook when we were working with city planning to upzone St. George. Mm-hmm. There's a very big difference when you have the folks that are coming through the community to get to or from work, and then you have people that live in the community.
That's right.
It's the difference between someone walking past that piece of trash on the ground or picking it up and putting it in the garbage. When people have ownership, there's a sense of pride.
It's absolutely.
And it shows. You know, Staten Island, well, we've been knocked for this, but we're a really proud community. Mm-hmm. You know, we stick together, and we take a lot of pride in our borough. You know, so we're a borough, like we said, 500,000 people strong, roughly. The median age is 39.6, $83,635. That's the most recent median household income number that we have. And we have over 10,000 businesses on Staten Island. So when you couple our infrastructure, if you will, with what we see on the horizon and the changes post-corona, we really believe that Staten Island is poised for tremendous growth on both the commercial side and the residential side. And again, I know it sounds self-serving, but it's not. True. We really are positioned as the last frontier where you can own property here in New York City, be on the outskirts, but still literally be a 23-minute boat ride to Manhattan.
That's right.
So, folks, take a look at the charts, take a look at historically how we've rebounded and how we have been steady. If you're looking to close your eyes, throw a dart, and hope for a bullseye, this isn't the place for you. But if you're looking for steady, smart growth on both the residential and commercial side, I really think Staten Island is a place you have to consider now. We can't be ignored anymore.
No, not anymore. No. As a matter of fact, in many of the meetings that I attend upstate with NYSAR, I have everybody teasing me because every once in a while, you have to introduce yourself, and John Vernazza, Staten Island, but I go John Vernazza, Camelot. So I've been teased. So now walking the halls at meetings up in Albany, I'll get every once in a while. So how's Camelot? That's fine today.
The Rock.
The Rock.
We love it here. It's our. I'm a native Staten Islander also. My mom is a native Staten Islander.
Right,
so
right. Yeah.
This is, we're just part of the fabric here, folks. We're running on a little bit long. There is a million things that we can cover. I think unless there's anything else we want to add at this point, maybe we'll call it a wrap.
Sure.
And then we'll get on tap. There's so many things I want to talk to you about on the education side. Sure. And the disclosures and all the wonderful things that you've brought clarity to for the company.
Sure.
So thank you for joining.
Are you kidding? It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure being part of the Casandra Properties family, and I do mean that.
And I appreciate that, and it's a pleasure having you here. You really have helped us go to the next level, and as you know, we've got app development going on. Yep. We've got, we're just getting started. We're so excited. I couldn't be more proud and happy for you to be a part of it. Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
And we'll see everyone on the next one.
Okay, James.
Stay safe.